Hey everybody, and welcome back. This is Zabelwolf, and this is actually the second review. This is a spoiler review of Ghostbusters 2016. If you haven't watched the first review and you want to get more of an idea of where I'm coming from before you dive into this one, because I'm not going to cover all the same ground again, click the link on the screen or in the info box below. So, onwards with the review. Ghostbusters 2016 is a generic, lackluster summer popcorn flick. Without notes on eidetic memory, you'll likely forget the film by the time you exit the cinema. That's how bad it is. Of the cast, only one is played as a character who is not meant to be in a mental institution. And that's Patty, right there on screen. Yes, Leslie Jones as Patty did not meet the racial stereotype expectations set by the trailer, nor did she meet the loud, obnoxious New Yorker stereotype so well known to the rest of the world. Yes, America, you have stereotypes, and boy are they usually annoying, and somehow this film got around that. She plays a character who is in over her head, but loves her titty so much that she can tell you its history. And the best scene for me was of Patty when she was in the theatre, off on her own, muttering about how she thought the Ghostbusters was going to be more like a book club, shortly to be chased by a possessed mannequin. And the rest of the cast are either lackluster or so emasculating it made me cringe. Let's start with the worst of the emasculating bunch, shall we? Chris Hemsworth is by far the best part in the film. Not the best character, but the best part. But in a film that's so lost in its narrative that men are either bad, idiots, complete morons, all of the above, and women are really the only ones who are good at anything in this world, it really doesn't say much about the film or the character. Kate McKinnon hams it up in an overly eccentric engineer with a PhD of some kind, but we really know little about her. Kristen Wiig's character is the one we learn the most about, but this is brushed over very quickly in lieu of special effects shots and cameos. I would have been happier with less special effects and more character-driven story. Who wouldn't? McCarthy is just subject to requirement, as it's a Paul Feig movie, but the character is just bland and uninteresting. Either McCarthy didn't get enough story to really build a character out of, Feig doesn't know how to direct a good film without toilet humor and adult ratings, the script was really poorly written, or McCarthy just couldn't be bothered because all of the above. Who knows? I don't know, I wasn't there, so I can only insinuate. I can't actually tell you. So, without McCarthy's character, this story would have been completely unaffected. That's how bland and useless and uninteresting the character is. It could have continued, it never would have made any difference, and everything would have still happened, maybe with a few more side points to get there, but it still would have worked. So apparently before the film started, Wiig and McCarthy's characters wrote a book together about the paranormal, what they believed in, and yada yada yada. Really, there isn't that much given about the book, and if I stopped here, I bet the pages would just be some random story pulled from somebody else. When they split their ways beforehand, McCarthy became obsessed, and Wiig wanted a normal life, tried to enter academia and become a tenured professor. At some point before the film started, McCarthy, in need of a revenue stream for her attempts at proving ghosts exist, decided to renege on this deal and publish the book. This obviously would cause problems if anybody had ever thought of even looking up the history of Kristen Wiig's character, but apparently while some slightly eccentric museum owner, I cannot speak today, he manages to find the book, none of her peers in academia have ever heard of it, so the idea that she goes off the deep end to try and stop the book and then gets caught up in the story is a little bit lost on me. It would have been more organic if she still believed in ghosts, and when the guy came to speak to her about it, she had her interest piqued, but instead she just wants nothing to do with it and goes to see McCarthy's character to talk her into removing the book from publish and sale because she's worried about her career. In this day and age, who isn't worried about their career? Let's just put that on the table. Everybody's worried about their career. So, going through this beginning of the story, bringing them together through the book, going to see this first ghost which has appeared, which you would have thought would have made more news, even like backwater news, which these, if they were Ghostbusters, would be following. To put it in perspective, Ray and Egon in the original Ghostbusters films, they followed occult manuals, they followed out there wackadoodle magazines which posted stories on these. They kept up with the latest in the occult book section, so they knew more about the history of ghosts and ghouls and beliefs in the world. These guys, apparently, even with the internet, do not. A world where so much more information is available to you now, and they don't. So they don't even know about this, and I'm pretty sure at some point somebody's going to have mentioned it, and they would have gone down. Even with right at the beginning of the film, crappy falling over candlestick piece, at least one of the people who went on this tour would have written about something like that, and McCarthy's character would have been down there in an instant. But no, never been there, never even tried checking it. Yep. The book's the most important part, though. I know I ran off on a tangent there. The book is the most important part in the entire film, believe it or not. But we'll get back to that later. Neil Casey plays the villain of the piece, where in the first two films the real villain is more of a historical nature demon who everything has been set up and is being planned through from the beginning. Neil Casey's character is more of just a basement dweller in search of revenge against those who bullied him, and has a genius level IQ, because somehow from a book that was written by McCarthy and Wick's characters, which from what you can see in the pages makes no mention of any scientific theorem, calculations, any mention on the kind of technology. He manages to make technology which they note works in much the same way as their own technology, which, surprise surprise, Wick and McCarthy's characters had nothing to do with making. It was made by their engineer, Holtzman, played by Kate McKinnon. So somehow this guy managed to do this from a book. The guy has to have been a genius on a level that is ridiculous, but because he's a bad guy, we're not going to pay too much attention to that, and we're going to brush over that plot point and be forgotten entirely. It's at this point in the film the plot becomes an action flick. So, we're going to delve deeper into the spoiler territory here. So when the Ghostbusters confront Casey, Rowan, he spouts some words and appears to commit suicide. I say appears because he planned to do this all along and become a powerful, if oddly corporeal and feeling ghost. Then they find a copy of the book that was mentioned at the start of the film, and we are treated to the most common story contrivance in recent Hollywood history. The villain and the heroes are connected somehow. Real original, Paul! Anyway, they get fake arrested for the camera so the local government can play it off as another hoax, and once out of the way, go home. I should point out at this point that whereas in the first Ghostbusters movie, the Ghostbusters actually bust ghosts and make money, at this point, the Ghostbusters really haven't done anything of note. They have captured one ghost, which we're going to get back to later. They haven't made a containment unit. They're really more worried about gimmicks. And the local government and the American government, apparently, are trying to stop them from causing too much of a scene, because stuff like this apparently happens all the time throughout history, and the American government just sort of quietens it up and everybody forgets about it. Yeah, that's where they're going with this one. Okay, so McCarthy, McKinnon, and Jones, they go back to the Chinese restaurant, which apparently is where they're all staying, and Wig heads to her own apartment with Rowan's copy of the book. While skimming through, she realizes it's not over and tries to call the others and warn them. This is where things get confusing. Knowing what is coming, Wig goes to the mayor, who, given they don't want the world to know about it, they've told the Ghostbusters this several times and have admitted they are not going to do anything with them in public, wants nothing to do with her when she gets there. Why she did this, considering she is a professor, she's not an idiot, and did not go back to the Chinese restaurant to get her gear and speak to the others who she hasn't been able to make sure got her warning, is beyond me. But had she not done this, I guess the film would have ended in a fairly different way, with them being squished by balloons. Yeah. Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and his friends are Macy's Day balloons. Balloons which apparently are susceptible to pointy objects with a little bit of force, but somehow from the proton streams can take a huge beating. Bear in mind, the proton packs fire a high energy particle beam in a confined superheated stream. And this doesn't burst the balloons immediately. But Kristen Wiig's character comes up behind the Marshmallow Man and sticks a knife in his backside and he pops. Yeah. And if you think it can't get any worse, it can, because when facing Rowan, who has opened a portal to the other side and who currently inhabits Hemsworth's body, they tell him to get out, to which he obliges and then asks them to choose a form. Why he has this power is never explained, but when he takes the form, he becomes so physical he can be hurt and is apparently anatomically correct because reasons. Anyway, as he takes this form, the form of the ghost in the Ghostbusters logo, it starts out really cute. It looks like a CGI animated version of the logo from the real Ghostbusters cartoon series, which then morphs somewhat into Oogie Boogie wearing a red bow tie, and then grows. He's standing inside a building at this time, the hotel he works in, and he grows to immense size, completely decimating the building, not leaving any pieces of it whatsoever. It's completely destroyed. It's gone. It's kaputski. The portal is out in the middle of the street now. Well, the girls decide that the best way to take care of the rampant ghost problem and Rowan is to destroy their car, which was stolen a little while ago by Slimer and Slimette, which apparently has nuclear reactors on the roof. Yeah. They sort of try and herd the car with Slimer driving and Slimette right next to him. Yep, you heard me. There are two Slimers, a female and a male. Not that you can really tell. If Slimette didn't have a wig on, she'd look like Slimer. At least I think it's a wig. I hope it's a wig. Anyway, so they manage to herd the car in, and just as it's going in, they fire their proton streams at the silver nuclear canisters on the roof, which, as they go into the portal and explode, cause a total protonic reversal. If you've watched the first Ghostbusters film, you'll know that this is caused by crossing the streams. I don't the science just isn't explained. You get more science explained to you, more story explained to you in the original two Ghostbusters films than you do in this one. And this one takes even longer to get the Ghostbusters to up and running point. At this point, they're still not up and running as the Ghostbusters. They're literally just doing stuff. They make no money out of this. They have failed as scientists to follow through on the rules of science, and they failed at everything else. It just seems like there are parts of the story which would explain things better have been cut in lieu of bad humor, bad cameos, and, well, I just can't dig into it. So, all the other ghosts apparently in the city are being sucked back into the portal, which is shrinking. Which, while it is shrinking, is somehow rebuilding the building that has been destroyed by Ronan. And every other building which has been damaged so far in the city during this piece. It's all being repaired as the portal closes. Sucking the ghosts back in, maybe that would give you some idea of a semblance. Repairing things makes no bloody sense whatsoever. But Ronan grabs onto a building. He doesn't want to get sucked in. He does not want to go down that portal. So what happens? They shoot him in the groin and he doubles over in pain. Since when do ghosts feel pain? No other ghost in this film is shown to feel pain when hit by the proton streams. Why does Rowan? Because reasons. There are some real points of contention for me in this film, as you can tell by my voice. They are too heavy on the gimmicky tech. Before they've even got the proton pack fully functional, they've started working on other things like grenades, which apparently actually physically destroy ghosts. A shotgun, which again physically damages the ghosts. Kate McKinnon's character has two handguns, which apparently work in the same way as the proton pack, which just leads me to wonder why they don't just use handguns and be more like the extreme Ghostbusters. By the time they go out and catch their first ghost, they haven't even started on a containment unit. Yeah, they theorize, just like the original Ghostbusters, that if the ionization rate is constant, that they could entrap and keep the ghosts. So you would think, in theory, before you go out and try to catch a ghost, you would have your containment unit ready. No. They go out half-cocked. They're not even sure. They weren't even aware of the trap at the time, so I'm not even sure what they were planning on doing until Kate McKinnon let them know about the trap. Onto the ghost, which the one ghost which they catch and then release. Bill Murray, I've got to say, he probably mandated this to make sure he never has to be in another Ghostbusters movie in this franchise ever again, if they actually make another Ghostbusters movie include in this setting. And that is, he is playing a famed debunker of the paranormal. A scientist, a doctor. He comes into the Ghostbusters lab in the top of the Chinese restaurant. Yeah, and he goads Kristen Wiig's character into releasing the ghost. Yeah, that ends so well for his character, because the ghost flies out of the trap, grabs him, flies out the window, and drops him to his death as it escapes. Oh wow, you're scientists, aren't you? Yes, we'll release a malevolent spirit that we have no way of containing, just to show you. And that causes a death. So there are accessories to the fact now as well, but that gets brushed over as well. Okay. They complain. Melissa McCarthy's character specifically says about the weight of the pack that she feels like her spine is compacted. Move on in the story, and they're running along as if these things have lost weight. Bear in mind, by the time we see them running, they've added more stuff to the packs, which would make them heavier. And yet they're running like they have a backpack on their back, not like they have any weight. There's no heavy footfalls, they're actually just running. The story is basically a rehash of the first half of the first film, with a little bit of the ending stuff. Rowan replaces the Stay Plush Marshmallow Man and Gozer. Well, Gozer's choose the form. There is an end credit scene which mentions Zool, which could mean that they're going to go the path of Gozer the Gozerian, which could mean we end up with another giant monster destroying the city in the sequel. Either way, the local government has come to the Ghostbusters and offers to fund them so they can prepare in case something like this happens again. In case, bear in mind, I think it was like 50 years prior was the other example they give in the film, so it may not happen within their lifetimes. Like that's not stupid. Anyway, there are cameos. Dan Aykroyd's cameo is by far the worst. Sigourney Weaver's, I swear she went in, stuck her tongue in her cheek, and just had fun with it. We do have a bust of Harold Ramis near the beginning, because he can't be in the film. He's dead. Nothing stopping them from doing a CGI ghost, but hey, even they're not going to make him look like something from the Haunted Mansion. Who else was there? Oh yeah, Bill Murray, whose cameo we've covered. Annie Potts, she's playing a secretary with the same gusto she played Janine Melnitz in the first two Ghostbusters films. And of course, we have Ernie Hudson, who is the breakout star as far as cameos go. His is the best. The whole time, Patty's going on about her uncle. Leslie Jones's character is going on about her uncle and where she got the car from. And right at the very end, he pulls up in the other car, and he asks her where the hearse which she borrowed for the business is. To which she responds, "It's on the other side." Oh, this continues on for a little bit, and he says, "I've got 4 funerals this weekend. I need the car back." To which she responds, Can't you just do 2 at a time?" I gotta say, that was the second scene which really made me chuckle. 2 scenes, both of them with Leslie Jones in. I never thought I'd do that, because I had no idea what kind of a comedian or what kind of comedy to expect. I didn't expect to laugh at all during the film, and laughing twice was actually worth it. And even when I think back to that scene with Ernie Hudson and Leslie Jones, it brings a smile to my face. That is a good part in the film. That is more of what we needed. More of in-universe and less tongue-in-cheek crap. The whole film is played off as if they all know they're in on the joke, and it's not being taken seriously. The characters are mostly bland, and McKinnon's character is bat-crap insane! She dances around with torches, on fire, lit torches. She sets fire to something and then dances around with the fire extinguisher. At the time it took her to realise about the fire and then put the fire out, everything else should have been on fire. I'm surprised that a character as insane as McKinnon's Holtzman made it through college once to become an engineer, let alone getting a PhD in nuclear physics. At least I assume she has a PhD in nuclear physics, and she's the one doing all the building and the others just stand there and talk. All the male characters are either stupid, ignorant, evil, all 3, obnoxious a-holes, everything. Yeah, female characters may have been treated like that at some point in the past. I can't name any examples, but I'm sure there are people out there who can. But doing that to men doesn't make it better. In fact, it just shows how far we have regressed. We got to the point where we started putting females on par with men in films. And now we're starting to regress the men down into the you're too stupid to do anything for yourself role, and women need to do everything. At least if the mayor was somewhat competent, it would have been fine. But, I mean, Andy Garcia plays him like he's an airhead supermodel. He got the part because the woman who works for him did all the hard work, and she pretty much runs everything. He's just there for looks. Yeah. Should you go and see this film? Well, personally, no. If I hadn't got a free ticket to it, I would not have gone and seen this film. I would have waited for Redbox or the bargain bin or anything which would not cost me the cost of a freaking film ticket. Because this is just bad. If you're so inclined, you can go see it. That is up to you. That's your decision. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I'm not even here to tell you what I think. It's just what I'm choosing to do because that's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. My score from the first impressions review still stands, a 3 out of 10. Netflix and chill. All in all, the film's premise is not a bad idea. It's just poorly written, poorly executed, poorly marketed. I have seen worse films. I have. Dragon Ball Evolution comes to mind, but Dragon Ball Evolution was so bad. If the only film I can think of at this point as being worse is Dragon Ball Evolution, it shows just how far down the ladder this film has gone. There are a few bright sparks in the film. Capturing the ghost was a great scene. Being chased by the mannequin was funny. The proton packs in themselves, the technology is great. Using a hearse rather than an ambulance as the first one used, everybody seems to confuse that. It still worked. Although it would have been more sensical at this time, or sensible, I should say, if they'd had some random junky car that they'd managed to get. The fact that McKinnon's character does all of the work, whereas in the first film it's alluded to that Ray helps. I mean, Ray does the car and works on the technology with Egon. In this film, McKinnon does everything. She does the cars, she builds all the technology, she runs through the testing. The only thing the others do is actually try some of the stuff, which, to be fair, Holtzman stands back when this is going on because she has no idea if it's going to work or explode. She's the smart one. She builds the stuff, but she don't use it until somebody else has made sure it's safe. This film has inklings of what could have been a fantastic film. But I really don't think the director was the best choice. The script should have gone through more revisions before it was done. This seems so much more like a first revision, which didn't evolve. It's like, here's the script, this is what we're doing. No, I'm not making any changes. Let's just do it. The cast are amazing. I mean, yeah, maybe I don't like Bridesmaids and I don't like Spy, but my wife is a big fan of Gilmore Girls, and I have seen Melissa McCarthy in that, and she is an amazing actress. You give her something good, and she can run with it and make it good. Leslie Jones, I've never seen her in anything in my entire life. She did a great job with Patty. I don't know if she made changes herself, or if the character just happened to be the only one that was well written in the entire film. Kristen Wiig is an amazing actress. I watched The Martian quite recently with my wife. She's really good. She knows how to act. She knows how to do characters. So why her character in this is so poor, I can only put down to a lack of direction and skill on the director and scriptwriter's part. We both know that Hemsworth knows how to ham it up with the best of us. We all know this. Come on, I mean, the guy plays Thor. And I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he also played George Kirk in Star Trek, the rebooted film. And that was amazing! That you felt the emotion from him. McKinnon, I have never seen her ever. I think I caught maybe a little bit of a skit of her when my wife was watching The Ellen Show and she was doing her impression of Ellen. I stopped for 60 seconds, cringed at how bad it was and walked away. I'm sure she is a very capable comedian. But she's an SNL comedian, and I have not watched Saturday Night Live. I mean, I've caught a few clips from the older ones with Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, those people. They make me laugh even still now. Some of the newer skits, which I sometimes catch, they all fall flat on me. I don't know. Maybe it's because they've moved into the skits of doing meme humor, and that stuff just really doesn't do anything for me. But I know nothing about Kate McKinnon. I think she plays an off-the-wall engineer fantastically, but side-by-side comparison of their closest relation characters, McKinnon and McKinnon's Holtzman and Ramis is Egon. Egon is a very natural-seeming character. He's not bat-crap crazy. He seems to have somewhat like a very low-grade autism or Asperger's syndrome. McKinnon's just completely off the wall. I mean, if she was a bouncy ball, she'd never stop bouncing. She'd hit everything. McCarthy, I can only assume, is more along the lines of Ray, Dan Aykroyd. Whereas he was more like a child, a lovable goof. This is something he'd always wanted, always believed could happen, but just can't believe that it's going on. And that he's getting to play with these toys. Whereas McCarthy really isn't she really isn't playing her character, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's the writing. I really can't blame her as an actress because I know she's really, really good. So I can only blame the writing. They started with an idea and then just sort of gave up 5 minutes into writing, and so this character who's very playful and just wants to get out there and do this sort of devolves into a in the background, don't really care kind of person. Patty, played by Leslie Jones. She's really what I kind of expect to see of somebody who loved their home and their city so well. I know people like that back home in England, in London, so I'd have to assume that people like that really exist in New York. I mean, New York is filled with history. Kristen Wiig's character, she's a scientist with no confidence in her original theories, who has to grow in confidence, but at the same time, really just wants a normal life. She's also creepy as heck! Her fawning over Chris Hemsworth's character, that is sexual abuse. That is abuse in the workplace. That is what you get fired, fined, and sued for. That is how bad that is. We live in a world where if a man is caught doing that, that is such a big no-no, you don't even get a chance to explain what's going on. I'm pretty sure it works in the same way if women get caught doing it. Yeah, they do it in this film, and they try to do it to play it off for laughs, but it just comes off as creepy. I'd walk out if I was if I was playing Hemsworth's character. I think his name is Kevin. I'd walk out after the first time that happened. But he's so stupid, he can't even see what's going on in front of his own face. Apparently he wears glasses, but he took the glass out because it kept getting dirty, which leads you to wonder if the glasses are prescription or if he just bought them off the shelf. If they are prescription, then he probably can't see much of anything beyond his keyboard. He's so dumb he tries to pick up a phone through a glass wall in a fish tank. And when the phone beside him is ringing and the girls tell him to answer it, he says, "I can't, it's in the fish tank." It's like he doesn't realise there's a phone right next to him ringing. When they tell him not to listen, he covers his eyes. When there's a loud noise, he covers his eyes. Rowan, the first time we're introduced to him. Neil Casey's character, it's with Patty, the first time we're introduced to her. And he mentions something about the fourth cataclysm. Well, were this the original Ghostbusters and somebody walked up and said, "Hey, yeah, this nutso started mentioning something about the fourth cataclysm and ghosts are suddenly appearing," they'd do their research and go, "Well, these were the first three, so this is not a good thing." These guys are just like, "Oh, well, that's nice to know." Yeah, that's it. Oh, and they don't explain how he came to the level of technology he's got. They don't explain how he even figured it out from the book. The book just really isn't explained at all. It's just a MacGuffin to say, "Hey, look, we're all connected." La, 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 la. Man, that's my rant over. I am going to go find something fun to do. Yep, you just saw me check what time it was. Man, that's my rant over. I'm going to go find something fun to do and release some stress. Who knows? Maybe I'll go play some Rocket League. Anyway, I'm out of here. I hope you've enjoyed the rant review. And tell me what you think. Tell me. I'd really like to know what you think. If you're going to see the film, let me know. If you're not going to go see the film, let me know. Just let me know. I'm Zabelwolf and I'm out of here. Ciao for now.